Hello everyone, welcome back to my backyard street lighting display. What you're looking at here is a 1958 or 59 to 1961 Westinghouse OV-14B. This was the very first small wattage cobrahead that Westinghouse produced. It came out in 1957 with the OV-25 and the OV-50, but this one is a little bit newer, but only barely, because it has a different font on the housing. It's more of their newer font, and these weren't made past 1961 because then the OV-12 was created during that period, and then after that short run of the OV-12 they made the OV-15, and that lasted a long time. So this is basically the exact same size lengthwise as an OV-25. You can even see the resemblance with the one behind it. But the difference is this is more narrow, the housing is. So it's actually its own top housing and door and everything, even though it is the same length. So go ahead and walk up here to it. It's very well made, of course, which can't expect anything less from Westinghouse. They always made a really solid product. So it has the typical flat bottom attributes here with the little metal panel there that covers the slip fitter and terminal block, and then the optical door that also covers the ballast. And then the capacitors are also underneath here, sort of. It's got a little chain to hold it, so it's not hinged like the flat bottom stuff is. So it just hangs like that. You got your slip fitter there, your terminal block, and then above it, your capacitors, which you can kind of see them. It's unfortunately the clouds are making it actually harder to see things. Almost want to go get sunglasses when I'm staring up at this. But there's the terminal block there. It's got a nice Westinghouse logo. This was the only Westinghouse product of its time period to use, well, besides the OV-10IB, to use a ceramic terminal block, as the OV-50 and OV-25 used a Bakelite plastic one. And the cool thing about this is it has the 1¼ arm sleeve. Sorry, I just got blinded by the sun, so it made me stop what I was saying. It is beginning the summer, so the sun is a little bit more brutal now than it was just a month or so ago. Anyways, so yeah, it has that little piece which makes it fit a little bit more snug on an 1¼ arm, which is something none of my other Westinghouse cobraheads even have, so this will actually work with them, which is cool. And then obviously here we have the OV-10IB lens, because I don't have a lens for this fixture. I had to steal it off that fixture. And then you've got your Westinghouse type OV-14B logo there. And that's really all it tells you about it. There's no tag. It probably had one, it's just gone. It is in really good shape though, so there's that. But for whatever reason the tag just didn't survive, I guess. Another neat little tidbit about these is they literally use an OV-10 housing for the reflector. So do OV-12s. They just didn't mold on the mounting for the hinge for the little door, but it's effectively an OV-10. And it mounts like this. You got two different mounting systems there for the reflector slash housing, whatever. And of course we have a nice 80s lifeguard in here, like 1982 I think, or whatever is when this one was made. And then there's the ballast, very hefty ballast. This is a 175 watt fixture, and now you can see the capacitors a little better. They're right there. So it actually has a dual core ballast, a split core ballast, where part of it is above. It's really hard to tell with the way the light is hitting it, but maybe you can see it back there. Yeah, you can kind of see the core. There's a separate core above there for some reason. I don't know why they stacked it. but they did. And also, an interesting thing to note is it has a unique method for switching between voltages. Instead of being, moving around wires on a terminal block like you normally would, you just have these little Molex plugs here with these different loops that you plug in for 240 or 120, which is kind of cool. I thought it was a multi-wattage or dual wattage ballast, 250 and 175, but turns out that's for voltage. So, kind of cool. These are pretty rare fixtures, actually. They're a lot more common in Canada for whatever reason, despite being sold here and made here too. But anyways, sorry. Yeah, it's really cool. So they really weren't common here. I can only think of one place in my entire state that actually used these. Also, let me fire it up while I talk about it. It is a little buzzy, but fear not, the ballast is in incredible shape. Capacitors are in incredible shape. So, anyways, obviously it's a CWA ballast, as you saw, and I don't think a lot of places in the United States really use these things. They, for whatever reason, were not common. I don't know if it's because they were expensive or what the deal was, maybe just the trends, because at the time when cobraheads came out, a lot of places were still using clamshells, including my area actually. So small fixtures were typically still NEMA fixtures with, like, either a glass bucket or acrylic bucket or a gumball or teardrop lens, or an open bottom thing like an admiral's hat or something like that. That was typically what was put in, or a radial wave, during the time when cobraheads first came on the scene in the late 50s and early 60s. So maybe that's part of it, because I also noticed, at least going back to like historical photos, because obviously I wasn't alive during this time, but going back to historical photos and also cities and towns that still have old lighting, I noticed a trend where 400 watt cobraheads gained more popularity quicker than the smaller ones did in most of this country, because it made more sense, I guess, to spend more money on the bigger fixtures with higher wattage lamps than the neighborhood stuff, I guess. So that could be part of it. But it is weird that these really aren't popular here, but they're really popular in Canada. Or they were, I should say. So it's pretty interesting. There was a couple of utilities that used these, obviously, because this is a former utility light that was decommissioned in favor of everyone's favorite LEDs. I got this from another collector. I did not get this from locally at all. Like I said, there's only one place I can think of in the entire state, which is huge, of course, that even used these, and it was only in one installation under a railroad bridge. That was it. I've never seen any of these in historical photos in any city here or in the current day left behind. I've never seen them. So this was this and the other one are the only two I've ever seen in person. And for being as old as it is, it's in remarkably great condition. I also forgot to mention, since this is my second take of this video, that the optical door mounts exactly the same as the flat bottom does, where it's got the little hinge that you can slide it to the right to remove it, and it has a little tab that holds it in. So it's exact same as the EB or the flat bottom OV-25s. I don't think the OV-50 split door has a different design for the mounting. for the optical door. But yeah, it uses the OV-10 lens. I also forgot to speak on that, which also carried over to the OV-12. And this is a unique footprint that only Westinghouse produced, so unfortunately, while I have a lot of small form factor lenses, none of them will fit except for this one. So, whoops, there we go. I just have to hope that somebody happens to have a spare one of these, which, by the way, if anybody watching this does have one they are willing to get rid of, let me know, because I'd love to get a lens for this fixture so I don't have to take it off the OV-10 every time I want to hang it up. And in the future, of course, I'd like to, in a perfect world, have a display of all these all at once, and it would be nice to have both with their own lenses. So let's go ahead and check on the electrical health of this fixture. It's our handy dandy kilowatt meter here. Wouldn't you know it, it bounces between a 0.99 and 1.0 power factor, which is literal perfection. You can't get any better than that. And it draws 209 to 211 watts, which means it's 175 watt, even though it doesn't have a label, and it came with a 250 watt bulb. This was how I figured that out. And it draws a beautiful 1.76 amps, which is pretty much exactly what it should be drawing. So these caps are in pristine condition. Completely perfect. And they're the original hardware. Which, yeah, it's incredible. All of my 1950s Westinghouse stuff have completely perfect capacitors, and most of my 60s ones and 70s do as well. I actually think everything does except for my OV-15. Seemingly one of them just randomly decided to give up, even though it was actually working properly, which was annoying. I unplugged it before any damage happened, so I actually don't know what it will do now. I haven't ran it yet, but everything else I've tried is perfect. And that OV-15 actually was running perfect too. It had like a 0.98 or something power factor, and it was drawing the amps that the tag read and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to probably test the capacitors with a voltmeter before I give it voltage again, and if they test bad, I'll just replace them and see what happens. But yeah, it's in really good shape, and so is everything else. The OV-10, well, I guess the flat bottom OV-25 is, but that's also a 60s product. That one needs new caps. It still runs, but it definitely needs new caps. But yeah, it's really cool to have one of these. Like I said, they're really rare, and I've never seen them in person besides this, so it's a really neat fixture. It does look a little alien in a way, because it still uses the same length as the bigger fixture, so the proportions are a little odd. It's not too bad, but it's definitely, it kind of makes it look like a miniature Powerlight 1000 watt cobrahead, which I keep forgetting the name or the numbers, but it's the one that's 4 feet long, and because of how long it is and the glass a normal size kind of, it looks a lot like this, except it's obviously bigger, but it's the same proportions, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I like the fact that it has a little chain on it, and other than the slit fitter slash capacitor slash terminal block door being made of stamped aluminum, everything else is thick casting. This thing weighs like 50 something pounds. It's ridiculously heavy for the wattage, and it's stupid well built, and it's in perfect shape. So yeah, I really like it, and it's cool to have one. Forgive me if I'm not as cheery as normal. It is insanely humid out here right now. We have decided to get a little free trial of summer before summer here after it was a beautiful 70 or like 50 to 70 degrees on average since mid-February here. We've had great weather, and then this week it just decided in the middle to be like, haha, it's warm time, it's gonna go back down and rain more. But in the meantime, while the rain is brewing, it is ridiculously sticky out here, so yeah. But anyways, yeah, so that's, I don't have a lot else to say about it except that I'm really happy to have one of these. And again, if anybody has a spare lens for an OV-12, an OV-15 or 14B, or an OV-10, because they're all the same, please let me know, because I would love to get one for this fixture so I don't have to keep using the OV-10's lens. So yeah, without, oh, and another thing I guess is I don't think I've ever seen one of these with a photocell. I'm not sure they offered it with a photocell actually, because on the top of the housing there isn't a little circle where a photocell would be, like every other fixture I have that doesn't have a photocell from Westinghouse but was available with one. So I found that kind of interesting. I've only ever seen these hooked up to remote photocells or something, so maybe they just genuinely did not offer it with a photocell. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about the fixture. I hope you enjoyed. I'm trying to keep more of this stuff documented. I've got plenty more fixtures to go, but I'm glad I was able to get this one hooked up, and I'm glad that it works perfectly. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.